1.5. And it has to do with angle relationships. We talked about these in class. And the two types we're going to start with are vertical angles and linear pairs. Now, both of these angles are formed by two intersecting lines. So if you look at the two blue lines here, they form, both vertical angles and linear pair are formed by two intersecting lines. And vertical angles are angles that are across, or you'll see the word opposite from each other. Vertical angles are also congruent. Congruent/equal in measure. So, and again, they're formed by two straight intersecting lines. So in this picture, one set of vertical angles are angle 1, and angle 4. Okay, so if I ask you to identify vertical angles, you can say angle 1 and angle 4 are one pair. And all of these vertical angles, linear pair, they're more than one angle in relation to each other, right? Like yesterday we talked about adjacent. So it's really more than one angle. One angle can't be vertical. It's only vertical in relation to another angle. So a second pair of vertical angles are 2 and 3. So angle 2, angle 3 are also vertical angles. And this is what you would say if I asked you to identify, but really how they're related to each other is angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. Okay? Now, when two straight lines cross, you also form angles that are linear pairs. So if you look at the word linear, you should think of the word line, and pairs come in twos. So we know we're talking about angles on a straight line, two angles on a straight line. And so linear pairs are exactly that, but they're also adjacent. So two adjacent angles on a straight line, and they must be adjacent. Okay, we talked about adjacent yesterday, and remember, adjacent angles are angles that share a common vertex, share a common side, don't overlap, and are next to each other. So linear pairs are always adjacent, and they're always on a straight line. Okay, so in this picture, if I want to identify some linear pairs, let me change the color. If I want to identify some linear pairs, I can look at angle 1 and angle 3. I can look at angle 2 and angle 1, or angle 2 and angle 4. So there's pretty much a variety of angles that can be considered linear pairs. Oops. Okay. I will list out all of them. It's hard to label it with the colors because they do overlap. But linear pairs, if I asked you to identify, you could say, like I said, 1 and 3, 3 and 4, 2 and 4, and then finally 1 and 2. So all of these are linear pairs. So if they're on a straight line, we know straight angles are 180 degrees. So all of these add up to 180. So I'm not going to write out all the statements, but you can say if angle 1 and 3 are a linear pair, then angle 1 plus angle 3 is equal to 180. If angle 3 and angle 4 are a linear pair, then you can say angle 3 and angle 4 equal 180. Okay, and so on and so forth. So those are the two major angle types. And again, both of these are formed by two straight intersecting lines. Okay? All right, moving on. Now, we did some of these in class. So determine if these are vertical angles, linear pair, or neither. Angle 1 and 3. These would be neither, because again, even though they're both on the same straight line, they are not adjacent, so they cannot be a linear pair. So 1 and 3, neither. Okay. Now 2 and 3, I talked about this in some of the classes too. These are also neither, because 3 is on this straight line, but 2 is not on the same straight line. And although they are adjacent, you need both of the angles to be on the same straight line. You see how angle 2 is on this line and angle 3 is part of this straight line? So they would not be a linear pair, and they're not across from each other or opposite. So it's neither again. Okay. 4 and 5, angle 4 and angle 5. These are a linear pair. Neither. Linear pair. Because they're on this straight line, so the conditions to be a linear pair. And they're adjacent. They are next to each other. So these are a linear pair. So linear pairs are two adjacent angles on a straight line. And these 4 and 5 satisfy that. 5 and 8 these are vertical angles. Okay. They're across from each other, they're opposite, and they're formed by these two intersecting lines. Okay. 5 and 8, vertical. Now, 4 and 9 are also vertical. Okay. So when two lines cross, you create, or you come up with two pairs of vertical angles. And if you look at 4, 5, 9, and 8 together, if I drew it better, it would form a circle. So both pairs of vertical angles add up to 360. But 4 and 9, in this case, are also vertical angles. Okay. 5 and 6 neither. Okay, they're not opposite. Well, you can argue they are kind of across from each other, but again, they're not formed by the same two intersecting lines. So, and they're not adjacent, so they can't be a linear pair. So this is neither. And then finally, 1 and 4, neither. Okay. All right, next example. Same idea, classify the angles as linear, pair, vertical, or neither. 2 and 5 are on this straight line in the orange, and they're adjacent because they share this side and this vertex. So 2 and 5 are a linear pair. Four and 7, neither. They are, even though they are across from each other, they're not formed by the same two intersecting lines, and they are not adjacent. 8 and 10. These are vertical. 3 and 10. These are vertical angles. Again, they're formed by these two intersecting lines. And they share a common vertex. And they're across from each other. Last one, 3 and 10 are neither. Okay. All right. Find the value of each variable to the nearest 10th. Okay. So talked about these examples. We didn't actually solve them in class, but like I said, to know whether you add the expressions, set them equal, you first need to identify what kind of angles these are. And these are vertical angles, which we know are congruent in measure. So 7x plus 30, that means there's a value of x that makes these two angles the same. And that's what you're trying to find. So you can subtract 7x, bring down the 30, 4x minus 24, add 24 to both sides. 4x is equal to 54. Divide, and you get x is equal to 13.5. Okay. Now, this, you can't really round this, because if we're rounding to the nearest 10th, this is the number I want to change. So I look at the number next to it. And if there's nothing, there's a 0, so it stays. So x is equal to 13.5. And it says find the value of each variable, so you don't have to find the degree here, just x. Here, this angle 25 plus 8 and 9x plus 2, they're a linear pair. So they would not be equal to each other. And linear pairs are on a straight line. So we know angles on a straight line are 180. And in this case, if you have two angles on a straight line, that means they add up to 180 degrees. I'm going to combine some like terms and get 34x plus 10 is equal to 180. Whoops. Not mean to do that. Okay. Subtract 10 on both. Whoa. Subtract 10 on both sides. You get 34x is equal to 170. Divide by 34. And you should get x is equal to 5. Okay. All right, moving on. Now, when you have two variables, unknown variables, you need to find the one, how do I say this? So it doesn't make sense to try and find y because like we know these are vertical angles. Okay, so starting with this, doesn't really help us because we don't know x, we don't know y, we have two unknowns. But looking at the other two angles here, 8x minus 5 and 10x plus 14, we know these two are a linear pair. They're on a straight line, so they add up to 180. So I can find x first. Or I must find x first. So add them, set them equal to 180. Combine like terms. Okay. Subtract 9. Divide by 18. So I get x is equal to 9.5. So now that I know what x is, I can go ahead to my second equation. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, but I can go to my second equation that I wrote and substitute 9.5 in place of x. And I know that's equal to 20y plus 1. So this gives me 8 times, let's see, 76 take away 5 is equal to 20y plus 1. 71. Okay, I'm running out of space, so I'm going to go here. Subtract 1 on both sides. So you get 70 is equal to 20y. Divide both sides by 20. Y is equal to 3.5. Okay. So x is equal to 9.5, y is equal to 3.5. Four, same idea here. So again, I'm going to have to find x first, okay, by adding them and setting them equal to 180. So I'm not going to do this one fully, but I'll give you the answer. So you should get x is equal to 7.5, and knowing that, you can substitute into this expression to find the value of the angle, and that's equal to 12y. Again, you can also substitute into this expression, but then you could also substitute into 10x plus 3, but then you'd have to, whatever you get, add it to 12y and set it equal to 180. So the faster way after you find x is to substitute into 16x minus 18. So y, when you do that, you should get y is equal to 8.5. Okay. Now, the last part here, complementary and supplementary angles. So complementary angles are two or more angles. So these are not pairs. So complementary and supplementary don't have to be pairs. Vertical angles and linear pairs are usually come in pairs. Adjacent angles also come in pairs. So complementary angles are two or more angles that add up to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two or more angles that add up to 180 degrees. Now, well, we know linear pairs also add up to 180. So these are statements I can make here. Linear pairs are always supplementary. Supplementary angles are sometimes a linear pair. Now, I can keep going here. Another sometimes, always, never statement is linear pairs are always adjacent. Oops. Always adjacent angles are sometimes linear pairs. Angles next to each other, all those four conditions, they don't have to be linear pairs, but sometimes they are. Okay? All right, so the last part here, finding the complement or supplement, it's asking you to find an angle that is complement of 27. That means whatever angle, find a measure of an angle that when it's paired with 27, they're complementary. So that's a long way of just asking you to subtract from 90. So you get 63 degrees. So the complement of 27 is 63. Same idea here, but we say supplement of 115. So 180 take away 115 gives you 65. So 65 and 115 are supplements of each other. Okay? All right. So now we did this in the Kahoot, but the following angles are complementary. So that means the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is equal to 90 degrees. And you can go ahead and substitute 5x plus 4 plus 7x minus 10 to give you 90. Combine like terms. Add 6 to both sides. Divide by 12. So you should get x is equal to 8. And now you know that you can find the measure of angle A is going to be 5 times 8 plus 4, or 44 degrees. The measure of angle B is going to be 7 times 8 minus 10, which is going to be 46 degrees. And both of these together, and you can check, add up to 90. So I solved correctly. Okay. Second to last example is the same idea, but they're supplementary. Okay. So I'm going to let you do this one. The equation that you would set up again is the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is 180. And instead of angle A, you'd put 11x plus 2 plus instead of angle B. Okay. Combine like terms. Subtract 9 on both sides. Divide by 19. So you should get x equals 9. And when you substitute into each of these expressions, you should get the measure of angle A is 101 degrees. And the measure of angle B is 79 degrees. And both of these, A plus B, does equal 180. Okay? Now, and the last type here is what we're going to go into class on Monday for a little bit, is two angles form a linear pair. The expressions for those angles, you have to create them based on the words. So, two angles form a linear pair. So I don't know what both of those angles are, but I know, let's say I'll call one angle A and I'll call the other angle B. So if they're a linear pair, I know they're on a straight line and I know that they're supplementary. Now, the measure, and right now I can't find A or B, I have two unknowns. Now the measure of one angle is 8 times the measure of the other. Okay? Now it doesn't matter. So on the side here, you kind of come up with the systems of equations here. So the measure of one angle, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. Let's say I pick angle B. Is in algebra, so when you convert these words into symbols, is always equal to 8 times, I know is multiplication, the measure of the other angle. And the other angle here is angle A. So I can say A plus B equals 180, but angle B is also equal to 8 times A. Okay, so some of you already know where I'm going with this. Oh no, my doc, okay, thank God. I thought it froze. So now I can just substitute. I can go back here and say, I can say angle A plus, instead of angle B, I can replace or substitute, use substitution. Instead of angle B, I can say 8A. And at this point, these are like variables, okay? You could have also used X and Y. Now 8 angle A's, plus I'm adding one more. So I have 9 times angle A is 180. Divide both sides by 9. And you get angle A is equal to 20 degrees. Now, if angle A is 20, I know A plus B is 180. So angle B is going to be 180 take away. Oops. 20 degrees, which is 160. Okay. And that was 1.5.